The morning light on Erevan was soft but bright. Kale woke in a quiet chamber inside the Crystal Palace, still feeling the weight of the first trial. His suit was torn, his body sore, but his mind burned with determination. He could still hear the sound of Saranya's voice echoing in his head. Only one will stand before me at the end. The trial of strength was behind him, but now the real challenge began. Saranya had spoken. Tomorrow would bring the trial of mind. Word spread quickly through the palace. Competitors gathered in courtyards and halls, speaking in languages Kale could barely understand. Some laughed at the human pilot, whispering that he was no match for them. Others stared, curious about how a human could survive the labyrinth of echoes. Kale ignored them. His focus was not on proving them wrong, but on proving something to himself. When the trial began, the competitors assembled before Saranya once again. This time she stood not on the dais but among them. Her presence was magnetic. Every being in the crowd seemed to draw in closer when she spoke. The trial of mind, she said, her voice both gentle and strong, is a test of thought, wisdom, and vision. You will face challenges designed to measure your intelligence, your creativity, and your heart. This trial will decide who truly understands worth. Kale glanced around. The competitors looked confident. Many had advanced devices, tools of calculation, and minds trained for logic beyond human understanding. Kale had nothing but his wits and human instinct. The trial began in the Hall of Mirrors, a vast chamber stretching beyond the eye. Its walls shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting infinite corridors of light. At the center stood a pedestal holding a glowing crystal orb. The competitors had to solve the orb's puzzle to pass. But there was a warning. No one could touch the orb until they solved the trial. A voice echoed in the hall. The path is truth. Only those who see beyond illusion will succeed. Kale stepped forward cautiously. The air felt strange here, heavier, filled with energy. As competitors rushed ahead trying to force open the orb's puzzle, Kale paused. He observed the mirrors. Each reflection seemed slightly different, showing not just himself but visions of others. Some showed Kale's own past. Others showed impossible futures. The hall tested not only logic but perception. Many competitors became trapped. They could not distinguish reality from illusion. Kale faced strange puzzles, shifting symbols on the floor, riddles in voices that seemed to come from nowhere, and paths that disappeared when approached. Kale remembered his training as a pilot, how navigation required calm, attention, and trust in instinct. He slowed himself. Instead of rushing, he listened to the voices. He studied the reflections. Slowly, he noticed a pattern. Each mirror showed not just a challenge, but a choice. The orb was not simply a puzzle of knowledge. It was a puzzle of understanding oneself. Kale closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of the friends he had left behind. He thought of why he had come here. He thought of Saranya's gaze, of the strange pull he felt toward this trial. When he opened his eyes, Kale walked toward the orb with calm certainty. The mirrors shimmered and dissolved, and Kale reached the pedestal. The crystal orb pulsed gently under his touch. A sound filled the hall, soft but powerful, like 1,000 voices speaking together. Then the orb glowed brighter and a path opened before him. One by one, the competitors were eliminated. Many argued, claiming the trial was unfair. Others looked at Kale with astonishment. Saranya watched silently from the balcony above, her gaze fixed on him. After the trial, Kale was escorted to a chamber for rest. Saranya approached him quietly. "You solved it," she said softly. Her voice carried something unusual, curiosity mixed with admiration. "Few see the truth hidden in the illusion." "You do." Kale looked at her. "I just tried to think clearly. I can't explain why." Saranya smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is because humans see with their hearts as well as their minds." "That quality is rare." Kale didn't reply. He was not sure what she meant. But inside him, he felt the stirrings of something greater. This trial was not about winning. It was about being chosen. And he could feel Saranya's eyes on him. Not like a ruler watching a contest, but like someone who sees something extraordinary. That evening, the palace buzzed with anticipation. The trial of heart would follow the next day. Competitors whispered about the human pilot who had survived 2 trials. Some mocked him. Others wondered if he was Saranya's choice already. Kale stayed in his chamber looking at the stars. The galaxy was so vast, so full of mystery. He could not imagine why Saranya had sent her call across the stars, but he felt drawn to it. He did not know what awaited him in the trial of heart, but he knew he could not turn away. The night was quiet, yet far above Erevan, 3 suns shone together. Somewhere in the palace, Saranya watched him. She did not know yet if he would pass all trials, but she knew something important. Kale Arden was not like the others, and she wanted to know why. The day dawned slowly over the crystal towers of Erevan, painting the city in soft golden light. Kale woke before sunrise, still sore from the trial of mind. Yet something inside him stirred, a quiet sense that the trials were not simply tests of strength or wisdom. They were something greater. He was not wrong. The trial of heart was announced in the Grand Plaza, with Saranya standing in her robes of shimmering silver. Her presence drew silence from the crowd. Every being there waited not for words but for her gaze. It rested briefly on Kale before she spoke. "The trial of heart is the most important trial of all," she said softly, yet firmly. "It is not about power, skill, or wisdom. It is about what lies within you, your compassion, your truth, and your choices. Only one can pass this trial. That one will stand before me." Kyle felt the weight of her words. Around him, competitors nodded, some smiling with confidence, others whispering nervously. He noticed how Saranya's eyes lingered on him, as if she already suspected something. The trial was held in the Gardens of Reflection, a vast place unlike any Kale had ever seen. The air smelled of strange flowers, and the ground shimmered like liquid glass. There were no walls, only open space, but Kale felt as if the garden stretched beyond the limits of the mind. Each competitor was given a small, simple object, a crystal sphere that glowed softly in their hands. The task was clear yet strange. They must journey to the center of the garden, but only by following what their heart truly desired. Many competitors smiled confidently and rushed forward, relying on strength or clever devices. Kale stood still. He held the sphere, feeling its warmth. Around him, others began their journey, stepping into paths of light that appeared before them. Some took the wrong paths, finding themselves lost in illusions. Others grew impatient and gave up. Kyle closed his eyes and listened to the quiet inside himself. He thought of Earth, of his family, his friends, the small joys he had left behind. He thought of the challenge ahead, but also of why he had come to Erevan in the first place. He took a step forward, then another. The path beneath his feet shimmered softly, guiding him forward. It was not a path of force, but of quiet truth. As Kale walked deeper into the Gardens of Reflection, visions appeared around him. He saw scenes of his life, moments of courage, kindness, and sacrifice. He saw times when he had chosen others over himself. And then, a vision unlike any before. Saranya herself, standing alone among the stars, her face filled with quiet longing. Kyle understood then that the trial was not just about him. It was about something Saranya carried inside her, something beyond her role as princess. He quickened his steps, guided by something deeper than logic or instinct. At last, Kale reached the center of the garden. There was no pedestal, no prize, and only Saranya standing there, her eyes glowing softly. Around her, the air shimmered, and the crystal spheres of all competitors floated silently. "You have come far, Kale Arden," Saranya said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. "Few have walked this path with the courage to listen to their own hearts." Kale looked at her, breathing heavily. "I don't understand. Why am I here?" Saranya's gaze softened. "Because this is no ordinary trial. It is not only to find a partner, it is to find one who can carry the truth of my people." Kyle frowned. "What truth?" Saranya took a deep breath. "The Zathar Dominion has lived for centuries in strength and beauty. But we carry a burden. An ancient prophecy says that one day a great threat will rise, a force that could destroy life across the galaxy. The prophecy says that only a being who can choose with a heart pure and free can lead us in that time. And it says that being will be human." Kale stared at her. His mind tried to process her words. "You mean me?" Saranya nodded. "I have seen something in you from the moment you stepped into the plaza. Something rare. You face trials without fear. You act without obligation. You do not seek glory, only truth." Kale shook his head. "I didn't come here to be chosen for something like that. I came because I didn't know why. I just felt drawn here." Saranya smiled softly. "That is the heart of it. The choice must come from your own will. Not because prophecy says so, not because I say so, but because you choose it freely. The plaza outside the garden was now silent. Competitors watched in awe. Saranya stepped closer to Kale. This trial is over, but the real decision lies ahead. If you accept what I ask, you will leave your world forever. You will stand beside me, not only as my chosen, but as a leader of the galaxy. Kale felt the weight of her words. To leave Earth meant to abandon everything he knew. Family, friends, the world he called home. Yet in that moment he felt something stir deep within him, a truth he could not ignore. Saranya looked at him quietly. The trial of heart is not won by those who seek to conquer. It is won by those who understand what is worth protecting. Kale remained silent, his mind turning over her words. Around them, the garden shimmered softly as if it held its own breath, waiting for his answer. Somewhere deep inside him, Kyle knew the trials were more than tests. They were preparation for something greater. And he knew that Saranya was waiting, not for a champion of strength or wisdom, but for a choice that could change the fate of the galaxy. As the sun set over Erivan, Kale stepped closer to Saranya. He did not yet speak, but his gaze met hers with quiet certainty, and Saranya knew the choice was coming. The air over Erivan was different that morning. The crystal towers shimmered brighter under the twin suns, and even the garden seemed still, as though holding their breath. Today was not another trial. Today was the day Kale Arden had to make his choice. Inside the palace, Saranya walked quietly through the corridors. Her mind was not on the trial itself, but on Kale. She had watched him since he stepped into the arena. Others fought for glory, for pride, for power. Kale had fought for something else, truth. That was why she had chosen to watch him so closely. That was why she had brought him here. Meanwhile, Kale sat in a quiet chamber high above the palace plaza. He looked out at the shimmering towers and floating islands, but his mind was on Earth, his family, his home, and the life he had left behind. To accept Saranya's offer meant to leave everything he knew. It was not a small decision. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Kyle Arden," Saranya said softly as she stepped into the chamber. Her eyes were calm but carried a weight of meaning. "The trial of heart is complete. The choice lies before you." Kyle stood slowly. "I know," he said quietly, "but I need to understand." "Why me? Why a human?" Saranya stepped closer. "The Zathar have lived for centuries in strength, knowledge, and beauty. But we have also lived under a prophecy, a warning of a force that will one day rise, capable of destroying all life in the galaxy. The prophecy says this force can only be stopped by one who chooses freely, without obligation, with a heart pure and selfless. That one is human." Kale's brow furrowed. "So this isn't just about you. This is about a war?" "Yes," Saranya said quietly. "But it is more than war. It is about the future of every living thing in the galaxy. You have passed trials of strength, mind, and heart, but the final trial is yours alone. Will you choose to stand with me?" Kale looked away. He thought of Earth, of the life he had lived, of the friends he might never see again. But he also thought of what he had felt in these trials, the strange pull to keep going even without knowing why. "Why does it matter so much to you?" Kale asked finally. "Why do you want me for this?" Saranya's gaze softened. "Because I have seen something in you that no one else has shown me. You do not seek power. You do not fight for glory. You fight because you believe in something greater. That is rare. That is what my people need." Kale remained silent. The room was filled with a quiet tension. Outside, the sounds of Erivan were distant, as if the world itself was waiting. Finally, Kale spoke. "If I agree, what happens to Earth? What happens to me?" Saranya stepped closer, her voice gentle. "You will leave your home. You will stand beside me as an equal. You will lead the galaxy with me. Earth will not be forgotten. It will be honored as the place where hope was chosen. But you must understand this choice will change everything." Kyle closed his eyes. He thought of Earth's quiet nights, the laughter of friends, the smell of rain, and the warmth of home. But he also thought of the galaxy, of all the worlds, all the beings who could be lost if the prophecy was true. When he opened his eyes, Saranya was watching him closely. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes glimmered with something Kale could not name, perhaps hope. "I need to know," Kale said softly. "If I choose this, will I be doing it because I have to, or because I truly want to?" Saranya placed her hand over his. That is the choice only you can make. Not for me, not for my people, but for yourself. That is why this trial is yours alone. Kale looked out over the plaza, at the competitors who had watched him with doubt and wonder. He thought of the trials he had passed, not by force or skill, but by heart. And he thought of Saranya, standing there not just as a princess, but as someone who had chosen him for something greater than himself. He stepped forward, breathing deeply. If I choose this, I will do it for the galaxy, for every world that has no voice, for every life that might be lost. Saranya's hand tightened on his. That is the answer I hoped to hear. They left the chamber together, walking toward the grand plaza where every competitor still waited. Saranya raised her voice so all could hear. The human Kale Arden has made his choice. He will stand with me. A hush fell over the crowd. Then slowly applause began, not just from Kale's fellow competitors, but from beings across the galaxy who had gathered to witness this moment. Kale looked at Saranya. What happens now? She smiled softly. Now, we prepare. That evening, they stood together on the balcony of the Crystal Palace, looking out at the galaxy. The suns of Erevan shone brightly, and for a moment the world seemed still. Saranya spoke quietly. You do not know yet what lies ahead. The choice you have made will bring trials greater than any you have faced. Kale looked at her. I know, but I do know this. I will not turn back. Saranya nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars. Then we begin the journey, together. Somewhere deep in the palace, the stars above Erevan seemed to shimmer brighter. A new dawn had begun, not just for Kale, but for the galaxy itself. The galaxy was not the same after Kale Arden's choice. His decision to stand with Princess Saranya became a story told across worlds, a story of courage, truth, and unity. But the peace they had won in the trials was fragile. Far beyond the crystal skies of Erevan, a shadow was stirring. The prophecy Saranya had spoken of was real. A force older than time itself was gathering power, spreading across the stars like a storm. It was not just a threat to one world, but to all life in the galaxy. Saranya stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Luminaries. Around her, representatives of countless races prepared for what lay ahead. This was no ordinary fleet. It was an alliance, warriors, thinkers, and dreamers united under one cause. And at their center stood Kale Arden, the human who had chosen not for glory but for the survival of all. Kale looked out at the stars. To him, they were no longer distant points of light. They were the home of countless beings who depended on what they would do next. His heart felt heavy but steady. He remembered Saranya's words, "You fight because you believe in something greater." That belief now carried the weight of 1,000 worlds. The day of battle came sooner than expected. The shadow arrived at the edge of known space, a wave of dark energy that swallowed light, turning star systems to silence. Entire fleets were lost before the first clash began. The alliance trembled, but Saranya's voice echoed through the ships. "Stand together," she commanded. "This is our moment. Not for power, not for glory. For life itself." Kale stood beside her. "Then we fight together." The battle began in a storm of light and sound. Ships of every shape and form moved as one. Human fighters, Zathar warships, winged fleets of the Arathi, and fleets of pure energy beings. Kale commanded a squadron of human pilots, their courage inspired by the trials he had faced. Kale's squadron fought through chaos. He remembered every lesson from his trials. Strength was not enough, wisdom could save lives, and the heart was what united them all. He acted not only as a leader but as a shield for his people. Amid the battle, Kale saw Saranya's flagship under attack. Without hesitation, he led his squadron into the thick of the fight, cutting through the enemy lines. His voice came over the comms. "Hold the line. We protect her." The alliance rallied. Kale's courage became a beacon. Every fleet moved as one. The dark wave trembled under their combined will. Then Kale saw the heart of the threat, a massive shadow entity, a living storm of energy, older than the stars. It pulsed with power, feeding on life itself. Saranya stepped forward in her command seat. Her voice was steady. "This is what we fight for." Kale felt something rise within him, a human determination that was beyond fear. "For every world," he said, "for every life." The battle became more than ships and weapons. It became a wave of unity, a force driven by the choice of Kale and Saranya. Every being in the fleet joined together, not as separate races but as one. Kyle and Saranya led the charge. They flew together into the heart of the storm. The crystal energy of Erevan's trials burned within them, a light that could not be broken. The shadow roared, but the alliance stood strong. Kale reached for Saranya's hand. Together, he said. She nodded. Always. They struck at the heart of the storm. Light and shadow clashed, and for a moment the galaxy seemed still. Then the darkness began to break. The storm shattered, the shadow faded, and the fleets of the galaxy cheered. Light returned to the stars. The battle was over. The galaxy had been saved. In the quiet after the storm, Saranya and Kale stood on the bridge of the Luminaris. Below them, the fleet celebrated. Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. Saranya looked at Kale. You have done what no one thought possible. You have united the galaxy. Kale shook his head softly. We did it together. Not because of prophecy, not because of trials, but because we chose to. Saranya smiled. Yes, that is what makes you human. The people of the galaxy began to speak of the trials, of the human who stood beside the princess, who chose not for power, but for unity. Kale Arden became more than a name. He became a symbol that courage, wisdom, and heart could change fate itself. Saranya and Kale stood together before the Council of Worlds. Saranya spoke with pride. The galaxy has been given a new dawn, not by force but by choice, and the choice came from a human. The crowd cheered. Kale looked at her. So what happens now? Saranya took his hand. Now, we lead. Together. They stood at the edge of a new future, a future born from trials, courage, and the power of choice. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the stars seemed to shine differently. A light of hope burned in their hearts. The trials were over, but the story of Kale Arden and Princess Saranya had only just begun. The galaxy would never forget the day a human chose to stand for all. The starship Endeavour moved quietly through the darkness of space, gliding toward an unknown point beyond mapped coordinates. Captain Arik Venn, a seasoned human explorer, leaned on the observation deck rail, watching faint lights flicker in the distance. This sector was uncharted, untouched by human eyes. Captain, said Lieutenant Mara, her voice breaking the silence. Sensors detect a planet ahead. Atmosphere is breathable. The surface shows signs of large cities. Arik's brow lifted. Bring us closer. Let's see if we're walking into discovery or danger. The Endeavour descended through the planet's thin atmosphere. As they broke through the clouds, an astonishing sight appeared. Cities glowing with strange crystal light, their towers spiraling into the sky. The architecture was unlike anything human technology had produced. The buildings seemed alive, shimmering softly like they were breathing. Landing in a wide-open courtyard near one of the city's grand gates, Arik stepped out, his boots crunching over polished stone. The air smelled sweet and fresh. Colors he had never seen danced in the light. There was harmony in the atmosphere, a feeling unlike any place he had visited before. As they moved deeper into the city, the streets became filled with beings of varied forms, tall, elegant figures with smooth skin that shimmered, eyes glowing softly. They moved with grace, speaking in a language of sounds and hums that seemed almost musical. Before Arik could take in more, a group of guards approached. Their leader stepped forward, an elegant being with silver robes and a calm presence. His voice was deep but soft. You are not of Zarithia. Who are you and why have you come? Arik stepped forward, bowing slightly. I am Captain Arik Venn, explorer of the United Earth Alliance. We seek knowledge, not conquest. The guard studied him for a moment, then nodded. Wait here. He turned and gestured toward a building of shimmering crystal. Moments later, Arik was escorted inside. The grand hall opened before him, vast, with light pouring through crystal windows that seemed to capture the essence of the world outside. At the center stood a figure of grace and power, Princess Liara of Zarithia. Her skin glowed faintly and her eyes reflected colors like liquid light. She moved with a calm that seemed to still the air. You are the first human to walk Zarithia, Liara said softly, her voice melodic. Why have you come to our world? Arik straightened. Curiosity. We want to understand. We want to learn. I offer peace. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a small wooden pendant shaped like a star. It is a simple gift, handmade, from my home. Liara's gaze shifted toward the pendant. She stepped closer, her expression unreadable. A gift from a human? Simple yet deliberate. Why this? Arik smiled faintly. In my world, stars are a symbol of hope. I thought perhaps it could mean something here too. She took the pendant carefully, her glowing fingers brushing his hand. For a moment she just held it, looking at it as though it held secrets. Then a faint smile touched her lips. It is beautiful. Thank you. Before Arik could say more, her guard stepped forward. Liara turned to them. Escort him to the guest chambers. Let him rest. As Arik was led away, he glanced back at her. There was something in her eyes, something more than curiosity. It was as though the pendant had awakened something deep within her. That night, in his chambers aboard Xerithia's guest quarters, Arik lay awake, thinking about the encounter. The city beyond his window was alive with soft lights and distant hums. Somewhere in the palace, the princess studied the pendant he had given her. He wondered what it might mean for both their worlds. The next morning, Arik was summoned again to the royal hall. Liara awaited him, holding the pendant in her hand. You do not know, she said softly, what this gift has stirred. What do you mean? Arik asked. She looked at him steadily. This is no ordinary object. It carries an energy I have never felt before. It has touched something deep in my people. Even my advisors are speaking of it. You human have done something unexpected. Arik felt a mix of pride and unease. I only wanted to give something as a sign of friendship. I never imagined... Liara interrupted gently. Sometimes the smallest things change worlds. Outside the royal hall, the city seemed to hum with an unseen energy. Arik could not explain why, but he felt certain that his simple gift had begun a ripple that would not stop here. For the rest of the day, word spread quietly through Xerithia's streets. Citizens spoke of the human captain who had given something precious to their princess. Scholars debated the meaning of the pendant. Even guards whispered of it. Arik walked among the citizens disguised in local robes, observing the quiet change. Children paused to look at him with wonder. Elders glanced his way with cautious curiosity. Everywhere there was a sense that something extraordinary had begun. That night, Liara invited Arik to a private chamber within the palace. She held the pendant close, looking at it as though reading a story in its grain. There is something here, she said softly. Something that calls to my people and me. I must understand it. Will you help me? Arik nodded. I came here for knowledge. I will help however I can. Her gaze held his for a moment, then she smiled faintly. Then our journey begins. As Arik left the chamber, he felt an unusual warmth in his heart. Somewhere beyond Xerithia's glowing towers, beyond the diplomatic halls and the curious gazes, something greater was unfolding. His simple gift had not been a gesture alone, it was a beginning, and neither of them could know what that beginning would bring.